Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael and we're going to be getting right back into some more Reddit stories. If you enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Now, without further ado, let's begin. This story was posted by a user named Guilty Toe in the Ask Men Advice subreddit. The post is titled, "I'm divorcing my wife of 17 years because of an old FWB of hers. 1 month ago, I found out that my wife's male best friend was actually her former friend with benefits, and that has enraged me to no end. Not just because they had that kind of past, but because she kept it a secret from me for all these years. To make matters worse, my sister, who is also my wife's best friend, knew about it and never told me. When we started dating 18 years ago, we agreed to cut all ties with our exes. Now I've learned that she's been lying to me about that for years. After finding out last month, I spoke to a lawyer and told my wife we were getting a divorce. Nothing she says or does now will change that. I also took a DNA test for my daughter and twin boys and have gone no contact with my sister. Some might say I'm taking things too far, especially with the DNA test, but there's a reason for it. Her friend with benefits and I look strikingly similar. We're both 6 feet tall, have blonde hair, and blue eyes. Until now, I never questioned whether my kids were mine, but after learning about her past with him, I couldn't help but feel paranoid. On top of that, her friend with benefits never got married because he claimed to have a free soul. It makes me feel like she just settled for me, and if he had ever decided he wanted marriage, she would have left me in an instant. The only silver lining in all of this is that the house we live in is in my name. I inherited it from my grandfather before we got married. For now, I've kicked my wife out of the house and taken her to her parents' place, where I told them exactly why we're getting divorced. I also told my kids because I believe they're old enough to know the truth. Since then, my wife has been calling me constantly, crying and swearing that they were just friends, but I don't believe her. I made it clear that even if the DNA test confirms all 3 kids are mine, I will still go through with the divorce. From what I hear from my brother-in-law who lives near her parents, she's a complete wreck and barely eats anything. My sister has also tried to reach out to me through her husband, but I told them I don't consider her my sister anymore after wasting 18 years of my life. Honestly, if the DNA test comes back negative, I don't know what I would do. I love my kids more than anything in this world, and finding out that even one of them isn't mine would break me more than anything else. Update. First, I want to make some things clear. I didn't kick her out of the house like some crazy person. I asked for space and she accepted. I then drove her to her parents' place, which is a little over an hour away by car. The idea of cutting ties with exes was hers. When she said exes, she meant people like my childhood friend, whom I only dated for a month in high school, but somehow not her friend with benefits, with whom she had a sexual relationship for who knows how long. Yes, cutting him off would have probably cost her half of her friend group, but the same thing happened to me when I cut ties with my childhood friend because of her boundaries. If she didn't want to lose friends over this, she shouldn't have been the one to suggest cutting ties with exes then. I explained the reason for our separation to our children. She lied about something important, and I was upset. I told them that I wanted us to take some time apart for now. The house isn't about money, it's about the sentimental value. It holds memories of my grandparents and childhood, and it's where I've made so many memories with my kids. That's why I consulted with a lawyer about the house first. I would still need to pay at least $100K to my wife for the house, but I'm okay with that. I asked her about her relationship with that guy 2 or 3 times early in our relationship. She always assured me that they were just friends, but I felt insecure and asked my sister, who knew them for 4 or 5 years. She told me their relationship was like that of a brother and sister, so I chose to believe her. A big mistake. The friend with benefits was never someone who would settle down and have a family. For as long as I've known him, he's always been traveling, doing dangerous things, and chasing thrills. That's why I feel like I was the safe choice for her. The fact that she kept their relationship a secret from me for 18 years only makes me think I'm right. The results of the DNA test don't matter. They will always be my children. Even if the results come back positive, I still want to proceed with the divorce. However, I should at least try 3 to 6 months of couples therapy, if not for myself, then at least for the kids. About the test results, I'll wait for my best friend before looking at the results so I have someone for support. I'll post a small update in the comments once I look at them. Edit. Like some people have advised, I should probably have her take a polygraph test to see if she's lying, and I will do that. Edit 2. So yeah, I don't really know how to start this, but my kids are mine by blood and soul. I can't even begin to describe the mix of happiness, sadness, and guilt I feel right now, but I wanted to give you all an update since you've helped to keep my mind occupied and not let my thoughts spiral down into a dark place, so thank you all. So, about an hour and a half ago, my best friend, whom I've known for as long as I can remember, drove nearly 3 hours to be with me and help me through this. After he arrived, we had a beer or two and I told him everything. He just listened, letting me get it all out, and reassured me that he'd be there for me no matter what. After about 10 minutes, I finally gathered the courage to look at the test results and completely broke down. I collapsed into a crying mess. When I finally calmed down, we started talking about what I should do next. Should I try to save my marriage for the sake of the kids? Would that even be the right thing to do? That's when my friend shared something from his own past. When he was young, one of his parents cheated, but they still stayed together for the kids. And he told me without hesitation that it was the worst thing they could have done. He spent years wishing they had just divorced instead of forcing everyone to live in that kind of broken relationship. His words, along with some of the private messages I've received, really hit me. So I've decided not to try to save the marriage. I will go forward with the divorce, but I also want to make sure that even after it's over, we can still work together for the best interest of our children. That's why I'll be going to both individual and couples therapy so that we can learn how to co-parent in the healthiest way possible. I also am looking for a good therapist for my 3 children so that they can begin to heal as soon as possible. Final update. I wanted to post one final update on what's been happening after I talked with my wife when she got back from her parents. As you can see from the title, I've made up my mind to give her a second chance after going through her current phone and her old phone from about 12 years ago. We had a long conversation where I asked her why she made me cut off my exes while she still kept her former friend with benefits. It turned out that her first long-term boyfriend of 3 years had cheated on her with a mutual friend, which made her deeply insecure about her future partners having female friends, especially exes. From the time we started dating until I made our relationship official after about 5 or 6 months, she was struggling with those insecurities. When I asked her to make our relationship official and get engaged, she had a conversation with my sister, who suggested that we both cut off our exes. My wife agreed, but my sister convinced her that the friend with benefits didn't count as an ex because they had only slept together twice during a trip to Europe with some friends. Later, my wife regretted lying to me and wanted to tell me about her past with him, but my sister stopped her. She told my wife that bringing it up would only cause unnecessary stress and could even put her pregnancy at risk. Because of that, my wife decided not to tell me, but tried to distance herself from him instead. Eventually, she planned to cut him off completely without me ever knowing. However, my sister had other plans. She had a crush on the friend with benefits close friend and really liked that friend group. She knew that if my wife distanced herself, it would inevitably break up the group. So she pressured my wife into going to meetups where the friend with benefits would be, sometimes lying to her about who would be there. Another possible reason my sister did this was that she herself wanted to keep seeing her own friend with benefits while being in a relationship and didn't want to feel guilty about it. That's the only explanation I can think of. I also asked my wife if she would take a polygraph test to prove she never cheated on me, and she agreed immediately without a second of hesitation. So we're going to try to save this marriage, starting with marriage counseling and other steps to rebuild trust. But first, she has to completely cut off that friend group and block my sister from everything. And to address some of the private messages I've been getting, no, I'm not an abuser, nor have I financially abused my wife. She has been working since our twin boys turned 2, and my mother moved in with us to help care for them while we both worked. And no, I'm not just looking for an excuse to leave this marriage because of some midlife crisis. I love my wife and my children, and not being away from them for weeks or months would be heartbreaking. Vastro said, polygraphs are absolutely junk science. It enrages me to no end to see people keep pushing this absolutely trash process. God, they should really just get divorced too. OP flew off the handle, and the OP's wife was intentionally deceptive. I couldn't imagine treating my wife this way. Hashin said, I'm not sure what brought all these people out in force here, but this is deranged. Is it shitty that they colluded to keep an 18-year-old alive? I mean, sure, but it's a former friend with benefits from almost 2 decades ago. It's an ex-friend with benefits, and there is no evidence of any cheating during the relationship. OP just sort of nuked his family because, I don't know, he's insecure. Honestly, that doesn't even seem right, because no reasonable person would end their relationship like this. Honestly, I can't give a coherent response because I am baffled by the magnitude of this overreaction. This final post was made in the same subreddit by a user named Elephant No. The story is titled, "My younger brother's GF said something that made me super uncomfortable. It's been months and it's still a problem." So some background, my brother, we'll call him John, and I are very different people and always have been. I'm a nerdy guy who likes playing Dungeons and Dragons and works from home coding websites, while he's always been sporty and has one of those corporate office jobs where I swear half of his work is just playing golf and going to fancy lunches. We didn't always get along, but we're pretty good these days. He started dating his girlfriend, who we'll call Jane, a few years back during what was a pretty low point for me in life. I had just gotten out of a long-term relationship that had ended anything but amicably, was burning out of the career I went to college for, and in general was about 2 paychecks away from having to move in with my folks. The stress of it all was taking a toll on my body. I went from being lightly chubby to just straight up fat, and shortly after the breakup, I had an anxiety attack so bad it put me in the hospital. It was not a good time to get to know me. I was basically the picture of a up older brother, but I turned it around. I got the mental health assistance I needed to diagnose and treat some long-standing issues. With that as a springboard, I started exercising more and eating better, finding cooking to be a good hobby that also led to me eating less takeout and processed foods. I'm still no Adonis, I still have a bit of a tummy, but I'm much stronger and feel better. I was able to quit my job and find a new one in a field that I never considered, but that I found I loved enough that I'm going back to school to work on a PhD in the fall so I can pursue it to a greater extent. And finally, I started dating again, someone who was a better match for me than my ex, which all brings us to the night things went wrong. We had a family gathering at my parents' house with extended family and all, plus Jane and Flo. I was making dinner, a beef Wellington. Everyone was raving about my food and my recent glow up, my new job, the program I got into, etc. I was smiling politely and mostly just trying to do a bunch of dinner prep while they wouldn't get out of my way. Then Jane said, "Yeah, never thought I'd picked the wrong brother, but I'm starting to think I might have." You could hear a pin drop. I said nothing again, just awkwardly laughed at what I assumed had been a bad joke. Jane's face immediately changed to the look of someone who has only just realized their mistake. John looked pissed, and the two of them left the kitchen shortly after. From what I could see, she seemed to be trying to apologize to him while he looked really hurt. My relatives said nothing, not immediately anyway. Flo kind of just winced and later told me that it was really awkward having to stand there, but she didn't know what else to do that wouldn't have escalated things or put me on the spot. That was over 2 months ago, and both John and Jane avoid me like the plague. Not even a text since then. Whenever I meet up with my relatives, they badmouth her over it, and while I think Jane did mess up by saying that, I really do think she was just making a bad joke. Personally, I think they're overreacting. This aside, I think she's probably the first person he's ever dated who was a fit for him in terms of personality and lifestyle. The only person being normal about it is Flo, who thinks it was weird, but like me, just a dumb thing to say. How do I clear the air with Jane and John and get people to stop bringing this up? I'm sick of hearing about it and just want things to go back to how they were before. Right now, it just feels like a dark cloud over all of our interactions. Update. I messaged John and we're grabbing a beer over the weekend. I'll update later. In the meantime, here's some clarifying information for some of the other comments. Jane is a very nice person and really cares for John. She's been with him through some difficult times, including a period where work separated the two of them for 3 months, and they're otherwise attached at the hip. She does have what some call a lack of filter, which we've known for a while, but she'd absolutely never leave him for me. As for why my relatives won't let it go, it's probably because they're a bunch of old Italian Catholics who like to gossip, which incidentally is probably why they didn't like the joke in the first place. My brother and I have a pretty good relationship as adults and aren't especially competitive. My folks and relatives don't favor one of us over the other, though admittedly, they do understand my brother's career path better than mine. I agree with a number of comments that the impetus of the joke was that I'm a good cook, especially when it comes to celebratory feasts. John is okay in the kitchen, but he's the kind of guy for whom a fancy meal just means picking up a more expensive cut of steak. I really don't think it has anything to do with me being the hot brother now, as a few comments suggested. John and I have always looked very different. Comparing us would be more a matter of personal preference than any kind of objective hotness scale. He's tall with a runner's build, and I'm a few inches shorter with a wider build and more visible muscles, as weightlifting is my main form of exercise. Lastly, not to toot my own horn, but I've never had any issues getting dates. barring the aforementioned year-long period where my life was falling apart, so I must have been doing something right. Lastly, as some have said, I probably could have saved everyone some awkwardness by playing along with Jane's comment with a "sorry, Flo got to me first," or something similar. I go into what Flo dramatically calls the kitchen death drive while cooking complicated meals, where I'm laser focused on the task at hand to the exclusion of all else, and my responses to questions tend to be short, curt, and even a bit rude. Normally, I would have tried to help salvage the bad joke, but I was searing a big, expensive piece of tenderloin at the moment, so my thoughts were elsewhere. Adam's little Wanda said, "I'm not bothered by this one bad joke. My girlfriend isn't bothered either, so why aren't you over it?" Honestly, those relatives seem like the kind of people who just want to have something to complain about, and maybe just try a simple approach with your brother. Ask him to hang out one-on-one first, then with both of your girlfriends, and go from there. To this comment, user Squeaky Wheels said, "I bet the brother is super hurt from it. If he's the sporty jock type, he probably always saw himself as the cooler sibling. His ego was probably rattled by Jane's comments that his dorky, chubby brother is actually a good catch." So I do think OP should reach out, but I think he should prepare himself for the possibility that the brother might not want to see him. He's feeling his insecurities in a new way, and that can make people act really weird. KJoy63 said, "Sometimes it's the reaction to the statement that makes things awkward. A simple laugh from just one other person could have set off the rest of the group to find it funny, not egregious. Obviously, just you laughing, being the target of the compliment, wasn't enough. If John and Jane do not have a solid relationship, this could have been a catalyst for a breakup. The fact that they're avoiding you is probably based on your brother not wanting his girlfriend to get any ideas. Maybe let time pass and someone can bring it up in a joking manner later if the setting is right." Plenty Different said, "It was a joke, albeit a bad one, but nonetheless it wasn't said with any malice towards anyone. Talk to your family and tell them to let it go. Maybe ask John out for a beer or two and talk it through. Tell him you want to reconnect. You're brothers, and at the end of the day, a silly joke shouldn't cause such a problem between the two of you. Then maybe the two couples could have a meal together to show the rest of the family that it's all put to rest." Update. I met up with John at a sports bar we go to sometimes when our dad is in town. We shot the breeze for a little bit before I asked him if everything was cool. He didn't really know what I was talking about at first, so I had to remind him. That weird thing at the family dinner. He immediately knew what I was talking about. I asked if we were all right, if they were all right, and lastly, what we should do about our nosy Catholic relatives gossiping about all this. First off, he confirmed what I thought was true. Jane was talking about my cooking exclusively. She's a big fan. It's actually the reason she came to that gathering in the first place. So that's good to hear. Nothing to do with my physique, though John did congratulate me on the additional weight I'd lost since the whole ordeal. Second, John's issue with Jane's joke had nothing to do with the idea of her leaving him for me or that he'd lost some prestige as the athlete in our family or anything like that. Something I didn't mention in the original post because I didn't think it was important is that John and I grew up middle class, while Jane's family is well off. Not billionaires, but she graduated from an Ivy League college with no student loans, which she's turned into a well-paying and highly specialized tech job. She and John go on lots of vacations together, have a very nice apartment in a very expensive part of the city, and all that stuff. The thing is, while John does pretty well for himself at work, he's not making nearly as much as she is and doesn't have old family money to fall back on. Trying to keep up with her has been putting a significant dent in his savings. Apparently, he's been psyching himself up to talk to her about how they may need to make some lifestyle adjustments so he can put more money away in savings, and he was worried about how that might go. Hearing her say that I might be a better option after hearing about my new PhD program was the sort of thing that came at exactly the wrong time, so he had to walk away. Adding to the sting of that, while he and I don't have much of a rivalry, he does still have some insecurity about me being the smart one of the two of us. I say this with all the love in my heart. John is an extremely intelligent guy, but you'd never know that from just talking to him. He's a whiz with numbers and knows more about corporate finance than nearly anyone I've ever met at any age. He also speaks with the vocabulary and goofy demeanor of a frat boy. So on top of the anxiety about his rich girlfriend thinking he's too broke to hang out, he was a little frustrated about the idea of a doctorate putting more perceived distance between us. He apologized for that jealousy and I told him it was fine. If folks were giving him shit, he could tell them he wasn't going to look over their stock portfolios anymore. He also said that he and Jane spoke about the money and she took it very well. The reason he hadn't been in touch lately was because they'd been looking for a more affordable apartment to move to when their lease is up. The only thing that left was how to handle the extended family. Apparently, John didn't know they were still on about that, largely because whenever he and Jane see them, they just talk about how Flo has too many piercings and swears too much. That gossip was news to me, so we mutually said, hey, forget them, and decided to continue not really letting what they say about our partners get to us. Instead, we agreed to spend more time, just the four of us. And before we left for the night, John did ask me for a few of my recipes. Thank you so much for making it to the end of the video, and thank you also to partner of the channel, GamerSupps. Use code DLAM to support the channel and get 10% off of your purchase, link in the description. I'm sure many of you like me have a hankering for daily caffeine, so go check them out. Lately, I've been a big fan of Titty Milk and Acid Rain, but they've got dozens of other flavors for y'all to try out. Anyway, thanks again for reaching the end, and I hope you all have an amazing passage of the next 24 hours.